You're good, but not irreplaceable. That single line shattered everything I'd built for over a decade. I was sitting across from my manager, a man I had trained when he first joined the company. I had given that job everything. Late nights, weekends, missed birthdays, skipped vacations. I wasn't just an employee. I was the foundation holding the whole damn department together. And now suddenly I was just replaceable? He said it so casually, like he wasn't talking to a human being, just ticking off boxes in some corporate checklist. I had just delivered a major project 3 weeks early, saving the company nearly $250,000. But apparently that didn't matter anymore. They were restructuring and bringing in fresh blood, which apparently meant someone younger, cheaper, and more willing to work 80 hours a week for half my pay. I walked out of that office stunned. I didn't say a word. I just nodded and left, clutching the severance package like it was a bag of trash. My coworkers, some of whom I had mentored from day one, couldn't even make eye contact. They knew. They saw it coming. And no one said a damn thing. For the first few days, I was numb. My wife tried to reassure me, telling me it was their loss. My kids asked if I was on vacation, but deep down, something inside me broke. I had been loyal. I had put the company first, and now I was nothing to them. Disposable. But the thing is, when someone tells you you're not irreplaceable, they're usually trying to convince themselves. That sentence kept replaying in my mind like a challenge. I started digging through my old notebooks, my prototypes, the ideas I never pitched because management wasn't ready. I called in a few favors, people I had helped over the years, developers, designers, vendors. They remembered. They showed up. They believed in me. Within 3 months, I launched a startup. Same industry, but smarter, leaner, and most importantly, built on respect, not exploitation. I offered a product that directly competed with my old company's flagship service, but with better pricing, user-focused features, and actual customer support. It didn't take long before clients started switching over. Some even told me, "We were just waiting for you to go independent." The news hit my old company like a freight train. They tried to shrug it off at first. Then came the lawsuits. Then the counteroffers to clients I had already secured. Then the desperate email from my old manager. "Can we talk?" I didn't reply. Because here's the thing. I wasn't trying to get revenge. I was just proving a point. When you tell someone they're not irreplaceable, you better make damn sure they don't believe you. Because I didn't just replace myself. I became something they could never replicate. Independent, respected, and untouchable. I spent 16 years building systems, managing teams, and keeping everything running smoothly at that company. I wasn't flashy. I didn't play office politics. I just did my job better than anyone else. That's probably why they asked me to train the new guy. Said they were expanding and he'd be my support. I believed them, so I trained him. I handed him every detail, processes, shortcuts, the unwritten rules that made our department function. He took notes, smiled, asked smart questions. I thought, okay, maybe this kid's got potential. I didn't know I was training the person who would take my job. A month later, I got called into HR. Restructuring, they said, budget cuts. But the truth was obvious. I was out. He was in. The guy I trained, fresh out of grad school with half my experience, was cheaper. That was all that mattered. They thought I'd walk away bitter. They didn't know me. During my years there, I had documented everything. Every system I built, every decision I made, every reason why it worked. I kept it all on a personal drive, not to harm anyone, but to protect myself. Insurance. So I watched from the outside. I didn't lash out. I didn't burn bridges. I just observed. Within weeks, I started hearing things. Client complaints, missed deadlines, server crashes. The guy they kept didn't understand the deeper flow, the stuff I never taught because I didn't think I had to. He followed instructions, but he didn't know why the instructions mattered. That's the difference. Then came the panic. Old clients started reaching out to me on LinkedIn. "Are you still doing consulting? Can you help us fix this issue?" I wasn't even marketing myself, but the demand found me. I said yes. Soon I had a steady stream of contracts. Companies that used to rely on my old employer were now coming straight to me. I charged more, worked less, and delivered better results. I didn't need the office. I didn't need the title. I just needed my reputation. And I had that in spades. I heard my replacement tried to reach out, ask questions about a system he didn't understand. I ignored him. Not out of revenge, just principle. You don't betray the hand that builds the house, then beg it to teach you how to fix the plumbing when it floods. Eventually, I got a call from my old manager. We're struggling. Would you consider returning, maybe in a consulting role? I told him I'd think about it. I never called back. They thought replacing me would save them money. Instead, it cost them everything I brought to the table: experience, insight, loyalty. They didn't just replace a worker. They removed the backbone, and all I had to do was watch. I was called into a meeting on a quiet Tuesday afternoon, blinds pulled down, HR sitting in the corner. That's never a good sign. My manager avoided eye contact as he slid the paper across the table. "It's not a reflection of your performance," he began. I already knew what this was: a demotion. After 8 years of leading projects, managing teams, and helping grow their profits by millions, they were pushing me down the ladder. They called it strategic restructuring. But the truth came out within a week. The CEO's nephew, freshly out of business school, had been given my title. He walked in wearing a smug smile, shook my hand, and said, "I hope I can count on your guidance." I was expected to train him, report to him, and basically watch him take credit for everything I had built. I swallowed my pride and played along for a while. I documented every process, every meeting, every task he fumbled. I watched as he made shallow decisions, ignored timelines, and pushed out ideas without understanding the actual work. He didn't care about results. He cared about being seen. Meanwhile, my team, loyal to me, started coming to me in private. They were confused, frustrated, and trying to hold everything together, but I didn't fight it publicly. I stayed professional. I smiled when he fumbled presentations. I stayed quiet when he claimed my strategies were his. I let it all pile up, quietly, carefully. Then one day, a major client threatened to pull out. The project was behind schedule, over budget, and the nephew had no clue how to fix it. The CEO called an emergency meeting. I sat there while the room fell apart. Then, calm and steady, I pulled out my notes, my data, and a backup plan I had quietly developed over the past month. The CEO didn't say a word as I walked them through how I would fix everything. In 2 weeks, I delivered. The client stayed, the team rallied, and suddenly eyes started turning back to me. Respect returned, but I had already made my decision. I handed in my resignation the next month. What they didn't know was I'd been meeting with investors, quietly pitching my own startup. With my experience, connections, and credibility, the funding came fast. I took 3 of the top team members with me. We launched within 6 months. Meanwhile, the CEO's nephew tried to run things on his own. Deadlines slipped, morale dropped, clients left. I didn't have to compete. They sank themselves. I wasn't bitter, just done. They thought blood ties could replace earned value. They were wrong. And in the end, nepotism cost them the one thing they couldn't replace: the person who actually knew how to get things done. When they called me in and told me they were cutting my salary by 30% and removing me from key projects, they thought I'd throw a fit, maybe quit on the spot. That's what they were hoping for. No severance, no bad press, just me walking out, angry and defeated. But I didn't. I nodded, thanked them for the opportunity, and walked out of that office with a calm smile. What they didn't realize was that I had already seen this coming. For months, I'd noticed the changes: meetings I wasn't invited to, decisions being made without my input, and a new manager hovering over my work like he knew better. I stayed quiet. I kept notes. I listened more than I spoke. And when I realized they were pushing me out slowly, I stopped giving them my best. I did my job, sure, but no more late nights, no more fixing other people's mistakes, no more saving the day. Instead, I started planning. I took every piece of knowledge I had: systems, contacts, vendor relationships, workflows, and built a quiet archive. I made copies of my templates. I cleaned my digital footprint, and I began building something for myself on the side, slowly, steadily. No one suspected a thing because I played the role perfectly: loyal, quiet, fading into the background. What they didn't know was that I had already lined up freelance clients, people I'd helped over the years, who trusted me far more than they trusted the company. They started sending work my way. I never advertised. It was all word of mouth. I built a small income stream without leaving my desk. Then the tipping point came. One of their biggest clients hit a crisis and needed fast, skilled help. My replacement fumbled it. My name came up. The client reached out to me directly, offering a private contract at triple my old rate. That's when I knew it was time. I gave my 2 weeks' notice with a polite smile. No anger, no drama. They were shocked, tried to act like they expected it, but I saw the panic in their eyes. The day I left, I walked out without a goodbye party, without fanfare. But I left knowing I had already won. 3 months later, that department collapsed. Projects missed, clients gone, turnover through the roof. And me? I was working from home, making more money, choosing who I worked with, and finally being appreciated. All because I didn't react. I didn't explode. I stayed quiet. Sometimes silence is louder than revenge. It makes people wonder what you're planning. And when the plan unfolds, clean, calm, and sharp, they realize too late that the person they tried to push out had already outsmarted them from the start. I spent nearly 7 years building the internal systems that ran our entire logistics department. From inventory tracking to client reporting, every process was streamlined through a network I personally designed. At first, it was just to make my job easier. Then it became something more. The system was efficient, smart, and fast, but it was also complex. You had to understand the logic behind every script, every shortcut, every trigger. And the funny thing? No one ever asked me how it worked. They were just happy it worked. When new management came in, they looked at me as a cost. "You've done great work," they said, "but we think someone more affordable can maintain things now." I wasn't surprised. The writing had been on the wall. They wanted someone younger, cheaper, someone they could control. They didn't realize what they were throwing away. I trained the guy they hired. Or at least, I tried. He asked surface-level questions. He smiled like he already knew everything. I gave him the basics. He didn't ask for more. I watched him skim over critical details, assuming the system would keep running itself. That's when I knew exactly how this would play out. A week after I left, I got the first text from one of my old teammates. "The dashboard's down. He's freaking out." I said nothing. 2 days later, another message. "Shipping schedules vanished from the portal. No backups." Again, I stayed silent. I wasn't being petty. I was being patient. The system didn't fail because I sabotaged it. It failed because they never learned how to keep it alive. It had layers, automated rules that needed regular updates, alerts routed through private APIs, file structures buried under years of optimization. I'd warned them in my exit documents, but they never read them. 3 weeks in, they begged me to come back as a contractor, triple my rate. I agreed, but only under my terms. Remote work, limited hours, and zero interference. They signed fast. I fixed what I had built, this time with even more lock layers. They paid, they thanked me, but they never regained control. What they thought was just software was actually my safety net. I didn't build it to trap them. I built it because I cared. But their mistake was assuming systems run themselves and people are replaceable. I now run my own consulting firm. I design systems that only work if you respect the process and the person behind it. That company still uses my work, still sends checks, and still hasn't found anyone who truly understands how it all fits together. They thought they could cut corners. Instead, they cut themselves out of their own success. When I finally walked out of that office for the last time, I didn't slam the door. I didn't make a scene. But I took with me something far more valuable than they realized. Trust. For years, I was the face clients turned to when things went wrong. I fixed problems before they even reached upper management. I knew what each client liked, how they worked, how they thought. I didn't just build business relationships, I built loyalty. The new leadership didn't see it that way. They saw me as a resource. They believed anyone could step in and handle my role. So when they let me go during a so-called restructure, they assumed the clients would stay because of the company's name. What they didn't get was that clients don't stay for logos, they stay for people. I left quietly. No warnings, no bitter words. But as soon as word spread, the calls started. First one, then another. Clients who had my personal number called to say they weren't comfortable working with the new rep. Too cold, too salesy. One of them told me, "We don't trust them like we trusted you." At first, I just listened. Then one of my longest-standing clients asked if I could still work with them, independently. I told them yes, but only if it was outside my old company. They didn't hesitate. Contracts were rewritten, NDAs expired. And just like that, I became a consultant with 3 major clients following me by the end of the month. The company didn't see it coming. They sent emails, tried to recover the accounts, even offered steep discounts. But it was too late. These weren't just clients. They were relationships I had nurtured through late nights, last-minute fixes, and honest communication. You can't replace that with someone reading off a script. They also didn't realize how much internal knowledge I had taken with me. I knew how to negotiate with tricky suppliers. I knew the timing of key product cycles. I knew the little details that made everything run smoother. And they didn't. That's not sabotage. That's just what happens when you let go of someone who held your operation together with experience, not ego. 6 months later, they were bleeding clients. They tried to spin it as market changes, but we all knew. You can't cut ties with loyalty and expect results. Meanwhile, I was thriving, working fewer hours, earning more, and most importantly, being valued. They thought they could replace me like a part in a machine. What they didn't understand is, clients don't stay for systems or slogans. They stay for someone who shows up, solves problems, and treats them like more than a paycheck. And once that someone leaves, the loyalty follows, along with the secrets they never bothered to learn. I still remember the moment my phone lit up with the CEO's name. I just stared at it and let it ring. After everything they did, after tossing me aside like I didn't matter, it was satisfying to see them finally realize the truth. Just months earlier, they acted like I was just another name on the payroll. We're going in a new direction, they said. It's not personal, but it felt personal when they replaced me without warning, when they made me train someone who barely understood the basics of my role, and when they acted like nothing I built really mattered. I walked away with my dignity. They thought I'd disappear quietly, but I knew what they didn't. I was the backbone of their operations. I knew the systems inside out, had built relationships with key clients, and created workflows that kept everything running smoothly. They didn't care at the time. They figured anyone could fill my shoes. They were wrong. A few weeks after I left, cracks started showing. Reports were late. Clients started complaining. The new hire had no clue how to manage the complex tools I built. Things I did instinctively every day were now becoming major problems. I started hearing from old coworkers. They're scrambling, one said. The new guy crashed the whole dashboard for the third time this week. Then came the call. Not from HR, not from some middle manager, from the CEO himself. I let it go to voicemail. No rush. I wanted him to feel what it's like to be ignored. After all, that's what they did to me when I tried to explain how crucial my role really was. The message was short and panicked. We need to talk. Please call me back. I waited. Another call. Then an email. They were desperate. Projects were behind and clients were threatening to walk. I finally replied, offering to return as a consultant, on my terms. Double the pay. Remote only. No micromanagement. And absolutely no training the guy who replaced me. They agreed within an hour. When I rejoined, it took just 2 days to fix what they'd messed up in 2 months. But I made sure they knew exactly how lucky they were to have me back. I didn't rub it in. I didn't need to. Their silence said enough. They knew they'd made a mistake. Now I run my own business, and they're one of my highest paying clients. But the power dynamic has completely flipped. I no longer answer immediately when they call. I choose when and how I respond. They used to treat me like I was replaceable. Now they treat me like I'm the solution to problems only I can solve. The truth is, value isn't in job titles or org charts. It's in what you bring to the table when no one else can deliver. And by the time they realize it, sometimes all you have to do is let the phone ring. When they fired me, they thought they were cutting costs. What they didn't realize was that I was the reason most of their clients stayed. I wasn't just another employee. I was the person people trusted, the one who picked up the phone on weekends, solved issues before they exploded, and spoke the language of every major client. But they didn't value that. They brought in someone cheaper, someone with a shinier resume, and assumed the clients wouldn't care. So I walked away, quietly but with a plan. I'd always dreamed of starting my own firm. I just never had the time or push to do it. Getting laid off was the push. I spent 2 weeks setting everything up. Licenses, branding, basic website, and most importantly, contacting a few of my closest client contacts just to let them know where I was now. I never pitched. I just gave them the facts. It didn't take long. One client reached out and asked if I could take over a project the company had fumbled since I left. I said yes. Then another client emailed me asking for a call. They told me, honestly, you were the only reason we stuck with them. That line stuck with me. It wasn't that I'd worked for the company. It was that the company had been lucky to have me. Within 2 months, I had 5 of their biggest clients working with me directly. I wasn't chasing leads. They were coming to me, and all I did was stay consistent, deliver what I promised, and treat people like more than just invoices. The old company tried to stop it. They sent legal threats, reminded clients of contract clauses, but it was too late. Clients weren't bound by loyalty to a brand. They were loyal to someone who actually showed up. Me. What made it worse for them? I wasn't using their systems, tools, or strategies. I had rebuilt everything from scratch, better and faster. I hired a small team that actually cared about results. We didn't have fancy titles. We had skills and we backed each other. While they were holding meetings about why things were falling apart, we were getting results. Eventually, the CEO reached out. He wanted to collaborate. I declined. Why would I team up with the people who didn't think I was worth keeping? Now they were losing business fast, and I was growing. Here's the truth. They thought they had hired me, but in reality, I made them. I built the relationships, delivered the outcomes, and carried the trust that kept their name clean. Without that, they had nothing. Now I work for myself. I set the terms. I choose my clients. And every time a new one comes in, it's a reminder. They fired me thinking I was just a replaceable piece. Turns out I was the whole damn engine. After they fired me, I walked out with nothing but a cardboard box and a quiet fire inside. They thought they'd save money. They thought anyone could do what I did. But what they didn't understand was that I wasn't just building systems or managing clients. I was the one holding their business together from the inside. For years, I'd worked late, fixed problems before anyone noticed, and built relationships that brought in repeat contracts. But they only saw the salary line, so they let me go. At first, I stayed low. I didn't post anything, didn't vent online, didn't tell the world what happened. I used that time to build something of my own. I had the skills, the contacts, and now the motivation. I started small. One client, one contract, one success. Then it grew. Fast. The same clients who trusted me before followed me now. Not because I asked them to, but because they knew I delivered. While I was growing, I kept an eye on my old company, just out of curiosity. Their quarterly report came out and I saw it. The numbers were bad, really bad. Profits had dropped nearly 40%. Client retention was a disaster. New deals weren't closing. Turns out, cutting me loose had consequences. The systems I ran, broken. The clients I managed, gone. The cheaper replacement they hired, overwhelmed and underqualified. Meanwhile, I was doing the opposite. My tiny company started picking up real traction. My profit tripled by the second quarter. I didn't have a big office, but I had loyal clients, fast results, and a reputation they couldn't compete with anymore. I wasn't running around trying to please a board. I was building something I actually believed in. Every late night now was for my own dream, not someone else's bonus. By the time they realized the damage, it was too late. I saw an article online, new leadership, emergency meetings, downsizing, and still they wouldn't admit the truth. They didn't lose profits because of the market. They lost because they bet against the wrong person. I didn't need revenge. I just needed results. And that's what I focused on, doing better work, serving clients the right way, and building something they could never take from me again. My calendar was full, my team was expanding, and my name was growing in the industry. Every win felt better knowing it came from the ashes of being discarded. They once told me I was too expensive. Now their losses cost them 10 times more than my salary ever did. They stopped building with care. I started building with purpose. That made all the difference. In the end, I stopped building their dream and started building mine. And it turns out mine was worth a whole lot more. When they kicked me out, they thought they were cutting dead weight. They thought they were replacing someone who had gotten too comfortable, too expensive, too old school. What they didn't realize was that they weren't replacing me. They were pushing me into something better. They thought they were closing a door. They didn't see that they were handing me the key to a brand new life. I didn't fight them. I didn't beg. I didn't argue. I walked away, head high, but with a fire in my chest that I hadn't felt in years. In the silence that followed, I started rebuilding. Not them, not what they wanted, but me. I had spent years shaping their systems, growing their client base, mentoring their team, but I had never stopped to build anything for myself. I had been loyal to a fault. Now, finally free from their control, I started putting my energy into something of my own. I called up contacts, registered my own company, and set up a small office. It wasn't fancy. It didn't need to be. What I had was experience, knowledge, and something they could never recreate, trust. Clients started trickling in, then pouring. Not because I offered lower prices, but because I delivered results and had always treated them like people, not numbers. They told me stories, how the new team was fumbling, how deadlines were missed, how no one really knew what they were doing. I listened, smiled, and welcomed them in. Each one was a reminder. They didn't build that company. I did, piece by piece. Meanwhile, I heard things. The CEO's nephew had no clue how to handle the workload. The new leadership was panicking. Meetings ran in circles. Projects stalled. They were bleeding money and blaming everyone but themselves. I didn't celebrate their failure. I didn't have to. It was natural, predictable. When you gut the foundation, the building doesn't stand long. One day I passed their office building, empty parking lot, for lease sign in the window. They had shut down operations in 3 states. Their fall was quiet. No headlines, no drama, just silence. The same silence I had walked out in, now wrapping around their failure. And I realized something powerful. I hadn't just survived, I had transformed. Their betrayal had been my turning point. I wasn't bitter. I was busy. My business was thriving. I had control. I had peace. I had everything they thought I'd lose. Because in pushing me out, they gave me the one thing I didn't know I needed: freedom. I was never replaced. I was reborn. And the sweetest part of it all, they did it to themselves. If you enjoyed the revenge story, like, share, comment, and subscribe to World Revenge Stories, where every tale is a new saga of revenge.